Operant conditioning is based on consequence. It's learning based on consequence. And then the major pioneers in this type of learning are Edward Thorndike and B.F. Skinner. And so Edward Thorndike conducted a series of experiments, the most famous being his puzzle boxes. So Edward Thorndike would get cats and put them in puzzle boxes, and then what would happen is that he would feed them after they managed to escape from the puzzle box. And then what he was able to notice is that actions were more likely to be repeated if the result was a positive consequence, in this case food. What would happen is that the cat would be more likely to escape from the box quickly, right? And then this was called the law of effect. The law of effect became his major law. And then it's also important to note that he has three laws in total that you need to be familiar with. So we have the law of effect, we have the law of readiness, and the law of exercise. The next character we can talk about is B.F. Skinner. So B.F. Skinner conducted a number of experiments with pigeons, with rats, with cats, and then the major idea is that he was operantly conditioning them to respond or learn certain behaviors. And then what he would use is reinforcements and punishments. For example, there's one experiment where he would use rats, and then what he would do is that he would want to teach them a behavior, which is to eat whenever a light goes on. However, when they eat before the light goes on, an electric shock would be administered to them. And so they would learn that pattern. And then because of that form of punishment, the rats would eventually learn the behavior that was being taught to them. So let's discuss the idea of reinforcement and punishment. Let's start with reinforcement. So reinforcement refers to anything that increases the likelihood of a behavior. And so there are two types of reinforcement. We have primary reinforcement, and we also have secondary. Primary reinforcements are things that increase behavior that we do not need to teach. Things like food, things like warmth. You know, when you're hungry, you eat. When you're cold, you want to be warm, right? And then there are secondary reinforcements. So secondary reinforcements will include things like money, right? Because suppose I told you for doing a particular action, I'll give you money, right? And then all money is a piece of paper, right? And so I need to teach you to understand the value of money, because you associate money with the things you can buy with that money. So money, grades, these are examples of secondary reinforcement. Another concept is we can talk about positive and negative reinforcement. So positive reinforcement would be a type of reinforcement that involves adding, or let me say the addition of something satisfactory or something nice in order to increase the likelihood of you performing that particular thing, right? In order to increase the probability of you doing the particular thing they want you to do. For example, let's say for completing a task, you're given ice cream. That's an example of positive reinforcement. Negative reinforcement involves removing something bad in order to promote behavior. An example would be, suppose you have a headache, right? You have a headache, and then if you're taking a painkiller, the painkiller will remove the headache, right? And then when it removes the headache, you're more likely to take the painkiller again next time you have the headache. So that's an example of negative reinforcement. And then the next idea is punishment. So punishment involves things that reduce your tendency to perform certain behaviors. And so punishments are also in two types. We have positive punishments and we also have negative punishments. So positive punishments will involve the addition of something undesirable to you. For example, let's say for coming home late, you're given more chores, right? I've added something undesirable to you. And so that's an example of a positive punishment. And then a negative punishment would be something that involves taking away good things, right? Like, for example, let's say you came late home, right? And then I take away your phone. That's an example of negative punishment. And then another thing that I feel I should mention before we conclude is that punishment and reinforcement can both be used to let me say, operantly condition someone to behave a particular way. However, you need to know that punishments have a downside. The downside is that punishments essentially teach fear and avoidance. They do not really teach you what is right, but they teach you what is not right. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are at a secondary school, right? And then they told you saying, for violating a certain norm, for example, let me say for littering, let's say the punishment is that you have to clear up a field. You have to slash, right? You have to clear up a field. And so what that will be teaching you, that whenever you litter, right, if you are caught littering, you have to slash or you have to clear up a field. But when you litter and you're not caught, there's no reinforcement there that's happening. And so that's one thing you'll be able to see about punishment. Punishment depends on whether whether you have been caught in the act, for lack of a better word. And so because of that, punishment is not very effective because it just teaches fear and avoidance. It teaches you to fear and to be able to avoid the particular behavior. But whenever you do that behavior and no one is observing, you're more likely to repeat it. The lesson you be gaining is, oh, it's fine for me to do this as long as I'm not caught, right? If I'm not caught, if I litter and they do not see me, I will not clear any field, I will not slash. And so that will end the video.